And welcome to another episode of the Brett Snodgrass podcast. I am so excited for you guys to join us today. I have a good friend of mine, Marck De Lautour from Kansas City, Missouri. Excited for you guys to meet him. He is very handsome, runs an amazing business, turnkey business out of Kansas City, and he has an amazing accent too. So welcome to the show, Marck. How you doing, man?
I'm great, mate. Thanks for having me.
I love your accent. I wish I had that.
Mate, all you need to do is go to New Zealand and live there, and then you'll be the cool guy with the accent, right?
That's right. That's awesome. Well, this is you guys tuning in for the first time to the Brett Snodgrass podcast. Make sure you go to YouTube and check out our Brett Snodgrass channel. Leave a comment, subscribe to our channel so you get all the videos that come out each week. We're trying our best to put out the best content in the industry. So like I said, Marck De Lautour is with me today, and a little bit about Marck. I've known Marck for a few years now. He was born in New Zealand. He's a real estate investor. Currently lives in Kansas City, Missouri. He started his real estate company in 2002. Built it up to where now they're buying and selling about 150 to 200 homes a year. Currently has 600 plus, probably more than that now, under property management. They do a turnkey real estate model in Kansas City, and then they also do flipping and some wholesaling as well. And he sells to people from all over the world that want to buy in Kansas City in a hands-off investment. He's also the author of a book called Mistake-Free Real Estate, and he has a podcast too, the Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast. So thanks for being on the show today, Marck. Like I said, man, really excited, and I just love your story, by the way. Number one, I don't know who goes from New Zealand to Kansas City, but why don't we start there? How'd you get here, man?
Yeah, it was interesting. So this is, pre-internet. So was kind of researching universities that I wanted to go to. I was a budding young tennis player in New Zealand, and still hadn't given up the dream and wanted to try and continue on with my athletic prowess, kind of chasing the dream. And so the NCAA system was something that I was attracted to. There was one guy, Danny Young out of New Zealand, that had come over here, and I had heard of him coming to America, heard of him going to university, and didn't really know much about it. But that was what got me over here. Long story short, was recruited into the University of Missouri here in Kansas City, and played 4 years on the Division I tennis circuit. So it was an amazing experience. B, it was a great way to see America. And C, it was an awesome way to get a free education. So I stayed on, got my MBA, and then fell in love, got married, and stuck around. So awesome. Yeah, that's the cliff notes.
That's cool. Was your plan as a child and kind of going to be a professional tennis player? Who was your guy you looked up to in tennis? Andre Agassi?
Yeah, Kelly Evernden.
I don't know.
Yeah, Kelly Evernden and Chris Lewis were the two great New Zealand tennis players. Certainly looked up to them. No, I was certainly not good enough to think about going pro. At 5'8", these guys are coming out all from all over the world at 6'3" and just crushing the ball. So I was good, but not great. And I think my pursuit of it was really more on the educational side. America was a dream to me. I think, for your listeners out there, I think, and maybe it's changed now that the internet and social media has given so much access to people to just, research online. But until then, America was just this dreamland, and we had vacationed there. I'd been to California numerous times, done the Disneyland thing, and it was always kind of this exciting place. And I just thought it was going to be a place where I'd go hang out for 4 or 5 years and then come back home, and never dreamed of leaving. In fact, I think it would have been more intimidating to leave New Zealand knowing that I would never go back. In fact, if you will let me digress, one of the stories that I like to share about my father and his the commitment level I guess I had. I was 17 years old, had committed to the university, and we're sitting around the dinner table just shy of my 18th birthday, and I was about to leave a month after I turned 18. And then one of our friends was, I like to kind of, yeah, I'm going to America. I'm kind of that's cool. And you're the cool guy. And you're kind of pumping your chest like, yeah, I'm going to America. And I was telling, all of a sudden about 2 weeks out, suddenly I'm like, I'm going to America. this is scary. And so someone had asked me at the dinner table, as a friend of, I don't even remember who it was, but it was a family friend. We're having dinner, and my family's big on sitting around the dinner table together. And one of the topics of discussion came up was, so Mark, you really excited? And I'm like, yeah, really excited. But if I don't like it, I'm just going to come back. And I'd never said that before. And in front of everybody, my dad said, Mark, you've made a commitment to the university for 4 years. You will not leave until you've got your degree and you've committed to the university for 4 years. And all of a sudden I was like overwhelmed with this, like, oh my gosh, my dad doesn't love me. It's like, he wants me to go. But Brett, it's exactly what I needed to hear at the time. I didn't even want to say it was tough love. I think it was just him wanting me to commit. And we talked about it later, where he said, I just didn't want you with the easy out. I wanted to kind of, burn the boats when you're on the island, knowing that you couldn't just jump back on. If your first week over there had have been a bad week and you wanted to come back immediately, I wanted you to commit to the process, commit to the experience, commit to this journey that you were going on. And obviously, it's worked out famously, not through, obviously everyone has their ups and downs, but who knew that I would have ended up, wife and 2 kids living in Kansas City for the rest of my life.
Yeah. And it's funny because when you said that, your dad said, no, you will commit for 4 years. And you said, oh, my dad doesn't love me. In my mind, it's like, wow, my dad really loves me, because he said that, it's not about that. It's about the commitment, right? And as kids, we want our kids to commit, to go in, to, he wanted you to face those highs and lows, I'm sure, of sports. And you're seeing your kids go through some of the same things. And, I think it's as parents, sometimes we want to coddle our kids, but it's good for them to go through the challenges. And he prepared you for life, right? I'm sure that really helped you in the real estate career as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, David Goggin, as you know, is a big motivational guy. He talks about suffering, and how most people are just not committed to the suffering. And it's on the other side. You have to endure the suffering to get the benefit of the growth and scale on the back end of that. And that's true in life and in business. And I think he knew that, I was going through this transition from high school kid to college student / semi-professional athlete that was, I had to commit to that season of life without thinking, hey, I would just jump back. So it's what I needed to hear at the time, which is a full credit to him, right? I mean, as parents, all that you can ask, if you can look back on life without any regrets and just saying, hey, at least I set my children up for success. I think that would be, kind of a feather in your cap.
Yeah, definitely. So ended up Kansas City, got a 4-year degree, got an MBA, met someone, I assume, at the University of Missouri, or?
Yeah, she luckily transferred there after 1 year at a neighboring university, transferred in sophomore year. I walked into the first class of English 225. She was sitting in the back of the room, and literally it was like one of those starstruck moments where I saw her, our eyes connected. I just, was immediately drawn to her, and I walked home that day with my best friend, Craig, and said to him, that's the woman that I'm going to marry.
Wow.
Which was, I'd never said that before. It was just, I could see the instant connection, and I would, just really cool girl. We got talking, and, we shared in just kind of a cool friendship before we even started dating. But it was that same day I said, and maybe it was not, I'm going to marry that woman. It was like, that's the type of girl I could see myself marrying one day, was kind of the comment. But it was, he kind of talks, we actually just celebrated our 20-year wedding anniversary down in Mexico with some friends, and Craig was there, and he brought up that story, and it was, cool to kind of reminisce and
awesome.
See how our stars had aligned. But very blessed to meet and marry my best friend.
Yeah. And for her, it was the accent, right?
Okay, so Brett, here's the thing, right? That's the second time you mentioned it. I'm obviously not, I'm cognizant of it. However, I will say that, through my freshman year, obviously that was, an asset as your freshman year of college. However, it gets old, right? When every girl only talks about the way you speak. Right, and I did say to Craig, I'm like, hey, the first girl who just, the first girl who just completely ignores it and sees me for who I am and doesn't even mention it will be someone that I'm extremely attracted to. And Sarah never mentioned it
Wow.
ever.
That's
And
cool.
so,
And I've mentioned
yeah,
it
it's kind
twice
of, you know,
now.
our
So
styles are
like,
definitely.
so you're really annoyed with me right now. I'm just kidding.
Can we just restart? No, no, no. It's
Just joking, just joking. That's awesome, man. So you graduated, and what was your business like? You got an MBA. What was your future? What did you do? What did that look like?
Yeah, look, I was very entrepreneurial, but I didn't even know what that meant. You know, I always saw myself working, you know, solo. What is that line where, you know, the definition of entrepreneur is someone who's willing to work 80 hours on his own pursuit so he doesn't have to work 40 hours for someone else. That was kind of my, I guess, life cycle at that time. I was someone who was just hell bent on changing the world, but I didn't know what that meant. I mean, I had a passion for real estate. So when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I could see that that was definitely, you know, the avenue I wanted to pursue as far as wealth creation and kind of I didn't understand the stock market. My dad kind of introduced me to it at a young age. You know, just, hey, here's $500, you know, you pick some stocks. And it just didn't make any sense to me. There was no action. There was no going up and down. I felt like I had no influence on, you know, what was happening. But real estate, when I read that and understood the, you know, the cash flow quadrants and understand trying to go from a business owner to, from a self-employed person to a business owner, as you have done successfully, that's a massive transition. And I'm sure we'll get to that. But Rich, that book really moved me, and I didn't realize it was going to be my vocation. I thought it was just going to be my wealth creation. But yeah, that was really the catalyst to me answering a call in a newspaper that said, learn how to buy foreclosure properties. And so I went and paid $5,000 for a real estate course in Springfield, Missouri. And just went down there with a buddy, and there was about 50 people in the room, and learned how to buy a house on the courthouse steps. And that changed my life.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey. Now I really want to just dive into the real estate career. So you started your real estate in 2002, which is nearly 20 years ago. And in this modern age, that's a long time doing something in anything, right? Any type of career, that's quite a long time. And so talk to us about this. And really the theme of the show that I really think about you is I always think about Marck De Lautour is you're a true person, you're a steady person, right? You don't go this shiny object over here and you're not crazy off the wall. You're just true and steady, and you're simple, and you do what works, right? And I really want that to be the theme of this show, about scaling your business the right way. And I think that's exactly what you've done. So talk to us about your real estate career starting in 2002, and we'll talk about how you scaled it the right way in the last 20 years.
Yeah. So quick background, you know, learned how to buy houses on the courthouse steps. And so that just started kind of one at a time, right? You'd buy a deal, you know, the old adage, you make money on the buy. So, you know, we'd just go buy an extremely undervalued asset, do a quick rehab. You know, was lucky enough to make, you know, some good money on my first flip. And so just kind of parlayed that into the next. You know, they say delayed gratification is a sign of maturity. And I think I'm a mature investor. I was never looking to buy the Ferrari or have a high cost of, you know, it wasn't about, oh, look at me. I was all about investing in quality assets. So for every 2 assets I'd flip, I'd hold on to one. I'd flip 2, hold on to one, flip 2, hold on to one. And that was kind of the model. But then as luck would have it, or bad luck maybe, I got involved with 2 guys that were my silent business partners, and that helped me scale quickly. So we kind of scaled the business. We started buying a lot of houses based on me being entirely the operations and the brains of the business. They were silent business partners. So that was about 7 years. And then when 2008, the GFC hit, we had a bad business divorce in early 2009. Which was very painful for me, kind of wiped me out, and then had to rebuild. And that's when I started having, you know, forced to do the turnkey model, which has now become our mantra, but really utilizing other people's money to go buy assets again. And so I fell back on some rental properties that I owned, but also was looking to change my business model because my financing had dried up and the banks were no longer lending. And that's when I started doing it for other people. So I went to, you know, Mr. Smith and said, hey, Mr. Smith, you know, you've always talked to me about investing. Now would be a great time. The market's tanked. I find it ironic that when Walmart has a sale, 50% off, everybody goes running. when real estate has a sale 50% off, everyone's like, oh, I would never buy real estate.
Yeah.
So I was one of those ones that could see that obviously clearly in 2009, 10, 11, 12, real estate was on sale. So we wanted to buy as much of it as possible. And so we were, but now I'm back to zero. So that was kind of my big lesson is I didn't have a third ownership in this big business anymore. I was 100% owner of my own business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I moved forward, was just, scaling slower and growing it, over time, just with me having 100% ownership. So I gave up the ability to scale quicker and do bigger things, but I maintained 100% control of the company. And that was probably the way that I did things differently. So yes, I've been in business 20 years and have flipped over 1,500 homes. But the first half, where we did about 500 homes, those 10 years were, the 8 or 9 years with those guys, I kind of learned how, obviously operationally learned how to do things, but business-wise, it was a big lesson in how not to do business legally.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because it's funny because I can kind of split your real estate career. So the first 7 years, you kind of had a different business. You had some partners, and then the last 11 years or 12 years or so, you've been own 100% of your business. So what were some more lessons that you learned from the first half?
Yeah. So the biggest lesson was, if you own a third of a company, you don't own anything, right? You have no control. So I was operating a business and putting assets into a business that I had no control over, eventually. Right. And so, when you're 2/3, 1/3 voted off the island, that's a pretty bitter pill. And, had no assets. And it's not that I legally didn't have rights to it, but they started doing things that were, borderline illegal, but under the scope of under the guise of 2/3, 1/3 vote, it would have been a long, lengthy legal battle. So the second realization was realizing that even though you're right, it doesn't matter if the legal battle is going to take so long that it would sink you financially. Yeah. So just to get specific, let's say, so I walked into a room one day, Brett, and there was it was meant to be me and my two business partners. And those two business partners had two other gentlemen in the room with them wearing suits. So that was pretty uncomfortable when you walk in there, don't recognize two other guys in suits, right? So I was the manager of both LLCs that held these assets. They immediately voted me to not have managerial control over them anymore. Each of those guys had put about $1 million into the business. We were paying them, at the time, prime was 2.75. So I think we're paying them like 3% money. They immediately voted 2/3, 1/3 to raise their interest rate to 13%. They immediately raised their manager. They made themselves manager of each LLC and raised their salary to $150,000 each, which was about double what I was getting paid to manage just the entirety of it all. And
it's no fun. It's very uncomfortable. I mean, that's all.
Dude, I'm sitting there
stuff,
saying like
they want to push you out, and that in of itself is like, if nobody wants you there, like, that's terrible. Anyways.
Brutal, right? And so, I'm looking at this like, hey, we own, about $13 million worth of real estate, of which I thought I was a third owner on, only had a debt of about $8 million. So do the math, right? I mean, we had a huge amount of equity in these homes. And now I'm getting, just thrust out in an area where they did not see value in me being around anymore. It was just a greed play. Yeah. And then lastly, which was kind of the illegal part of it all, they stopped paying. I was only on 5 mortgages, right? These guys were the financial backers. So they had, of all the, 65 mortgages, 60 were in their name, and there was just 5 that were only in my name. Mm-hmm. Suddenly 5 mortgages were not getting paid that month.
Oh, wow.
And that was when I'm like, okay, I can't wait them out because it's going to destroy my credit. Yeah. It's going to destroy, I'm wanting to make this a career, and they're just playing this game knowing that they have all the power and money in the world to get me out. And it was just a harsh reality of, how not to set up a business. So lesson learned. And I mean, certainly God had a plan and a vision for me to build it the right way. But boy, I mean, very, 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 very painful journey home.
What was it like
trying to explain the wife to telling Sarah those conversations of like, because she would go down that, well, that's not fair. I'm like, I know, well, that's not right. That's not fair. That's not just. That's we should sue. We should do. I mean, it's like at some point she's correct. Yeah. But that's just not the way the world works. And sometimes being right doesn't matter, and you have to swallow your pride, move on, and just say, look, I'm young enough, thankfully, that I can rebuild and commit to the rebuilding process and just learn my lesson and do it the right way. But boy, feeling like a failure as a husband, as a father, as a business owner, as a man, just not being able to deliver, it was extremely painful.
So as soon as you ended the business divorce, did you start back into real estate again? Did you get another job? What did that look like?
So I don't know if you can do turnovers or whatever, but I will say also, just God has a sense of humor. It was January 1st of 2009. I had to drive to the office to fax a document to the attorney, for whatever reason, or a scan email or whatever it was, of signing away my right. They agreed to just say, hey, if you sign away all your rights to all the real estate and everything, we'll pay your mortgages off for you. That's all I got, was that they were going to pay off my debt, which wasn't even my debt. That's the other lesson, is don't put personal debt on assets that you don't have full control over. Right.
Right.
So anyway, I was leaving. I get in the car, Brett, and I kid you not, there's a song by, I think, Jason Derulo that says it's called Solo. I'm flying solo. I'm flying solo. And I get in the car and that song comes on and I just got tears coming down my cheeks. And I'm like, all right, you're right, God. I'm going solo now. And I'm going to just go crush it. It was kind of like, depressing and motivating all at the same time. Yeah. And that was a song that every time I hear that song now, it is just an inspiration to me to say, like, yeah. Now, having said that, the transition now is realizing that you got to have the right people around you. You can't do everything solo, but it was just, that's that kick in the tail that I needed at that time to say, you're on your own, mate. And you got to go figure it out.
Yeah. So how long was it before you started getting traction again? I mean,
oh, look, I sort of had, the business model was sound, right? I mean, we're buying quality assets. My business wasn't broken. It was a hostile takeover, for lack of a better term. And so my business was not broken. So I immediately just rolled my sleeves up and went back to work and started making money immediately. And so that was the benefit there, was not that I was out of a way to make money. I didn't have to go pick up a job. I didn't have to deliver pizzas. But I certainly was just different about the way I structured things. So thankfully I went back and said, hey, went to people that had money and said, hey, look, this is my track record. So, I don't want to completely say that those 7 years were wasted. I mean, I learned and grew a business that was very profitable and great. I just legally had a lesson in how not to structure a business. So I went back to some people and said, hey, you put up all the money, I'll do all the work, and we'll split the profits 50-50. So that was kind of a way to get through the first year of just, so then I at least would have the money to be able to consummate the deals and do the deals. Then I would, get bank financing to hold some assets, because I knew that now's the best time to hold assets, right? So I still own assets from all the way back in 2002. That I own personally before those guys. And then also from 2012, 13, 14, 15, assets that now have more than doubled and tripled in value. And so, it was just, I think the internal reflection was, hey, the ship's not, you may feel sunk, but it's not that you had a bad ship. You just got to sail it on your own for a while.
Yeah. No, that's great. And it sounds like you went home and you really had to do some creative things, some problem solving ideas. I mean, going out, you didn't have this huge financial, system backing you up. So you had to split some profits with some other people here and there. Your model, it sounds like is that when you started getting into the turnkey model, which you can explain a little bit about your model as well to the audience.
Yeah, so I think if I were to reflect back and to put it concisely, I think what I saw as an opportunity in the marketplace was that wealthy people have a challenge in how to invest their money, because the only thing that they can really do hands off is just stick it in the stock market. And I didn't understand it. And I soon realized that other wealthy people didn't really understand it either. Which is why Bernie Madoff can make off with so much of other people's money. It's like they just trust everyone to do the right thing. And inherently, it's extremely risky. And so I felt if I could position our company to offer people a safe, secure, and hands-off way to invest in real estate, that I would have something of value. And that's essentially, I mean, this whole turnkey, concept, it was, we were doing this before that term. I even knew what the term was, but a turnkey investor or a turnkey real estate operation is where an operator is going to buy a house, remodel it, get it rented out, hold it as a rental property, but then sell that asset to an investor who all they do is say, oh, that's a good asset. It's already cash flowing. and I want to buy that asset. So you're selling beautifully remodeled, rented out property, cash flowing property to investors that all they have to do is raise their hand and say, yes, I'd like some. So we've gained so much traction now that our demand greatly exceeds supply. So our challenge now is to scale up and cater to all of the excess demand out there. But to your point, that's what I saw in the marketplace was if I can deliver turnkey assets or this rental property, if I can try and make it as easy as just clicking a button as you do on E-Trade or Scottrade, I would have something that would be deliverable that would be of highly sought after.
Awesome. Well, thanks. Yes, thanks. And it's a great model. I measure 3 things in my life. I talk about this a lot. I measure, number 1, money, right? I measure how much something cost, and then the second one is time. How much time is it going to take me? And then the third one is sanity. Like how much stress am I going to have? How much headaches am I going to have over this? And Turnkey takes a lot of the sanity out. That's why I enjoy it. I buy some Turnkey houses here in Indianapolis as well. So Mark, let's talk about this second half of your life now. So your second half of your business, you learned some things from the hard knocks of your bad business divorce. Now you're getting into this business. You own 100% of it, and we're going to be talking about scaling it the right way. So what are some things that you did differently this time rather than the first time?
Yeah, so I think I can also segment that the last 10 years into probably the first 6 and then the last 4. The first 6, it was just traction, right? You're just a solopreneur. I was burned by that bitter business divorce. I felt like I had to do everything on my own, and was just hustle and grind, and really felt like I had to be the answer to every question. I wanted people to call me when there was an issue with, hey, what granite selection are we going to go with? I wanted them to call me, hey, what do you want your maximum bid at auction to be today? I wanted to control everything. So that is one way to do it. And you can certainly have a successful little business if you're a solopreneur doing that. But that's not really where my calling was. I wanted to grow my business. I wanted to transition from being a small business, from owning a job effectively to owning a business. And so when I started reading more books about being a CEO, what a CEO does, how to scale a business where you're not the top-down decision-making, I kept on coming back to, and by the way, I'm a huge avid book reader, right? So Patrick Lencioni was a huge influence on me. Never met the man, but he's a big influence on me through all of the books that he's written, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, The Ideal Team Player, and those series. I also love the Vern Harnish model of scaling up, looking at how to successfully scale. But the big book that I read when we implemented EOS was a book called Rocket Fuel. And Rocket Fuel talked about the need of a CEO and a visionary, which I am 100% visionary, the need to have a COO or just a number 2 in the business to be able to scale successfully without stress. One of the famous quotes that I always refer back to, Brett, is vision without execution is hallucination. And that was very adamant in my business, that I had this big vision of where I wanted to go, but the execution was lacking. And so, when you own a job or you're a small business owner, and you are the bottleneck of all decisions, and every decision has to come through you, you are limited to how you can scale. And so the way that you scale has to be through systems and process and procedures and manuals and training, and onboarding and structure. And I suck at all of that. And so getting someone who could help me implement all of that was where we really started to gain traction. So for anyone out there who's a visionary, that has read Rocket Fuel and says, oh my gosh, yes, I am a visionary and that's the problem. It is imperative that you find someone to come in behind you and start implementing process that loves detail. And that's where the true partnership lies, is in getting those two aligned.
Yeah, that's a great book, and we're going to put that in the description too, guys. Rocket Fuel, the same author wrote Traction, and we'll put that in there as well. And I've read Scaling Up, so those are all great books if you guys are looking to scale your business as well. And Mark, there was a time, maybe not too long ago, maybe it was a couple years ago, that all these decisions were coming to you, and I know what that's like, right? You're leading this team, you're trying to keep all the plates spinning at the same time. You got the money, you're trying to track the data, you're trying to empower your team, your people, and that's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress. And I know that you mentioned before you did a presentation at Collective Genius, which we're both a part of, and you talked about what this did to you. So why don't you take us there of the business leader and talk to the person out there that maybe has all that upon them right now.
Yeah, so my low point was an emotional low point. Again, this is kind of in the second iteration of my business, right? So now, I'd been done with my business divorce in 2009. Now I had, I got a successful company that was financially doing extremely well. So it's sometimes you've got to separate the business from being a financial success to being a success. I was not successful as I would define it now, because I was putting a big pressure on my family, working nights and weekends. Well, never not working was really the fact of it. I'd have my cell phone really as an electronic leash, always checking email, getting texts, responding. I kind of used it as a crux that I could be on vacation and like, oh yeah, I can go on vacation because I've already, I wouldn't lose track because my cell phone's right there. Turning off a cell phone for a week would probably shut the business down, from decision making happening. And so getting from that point to where now I could step away from the business for 30, 40 days, and I mean, it wouldn't miss me. Might not have as many podcast episodes, but other than that, the business would be growing and scaling. And so bridging that gap, I reached a low point emotionally, and I finally just, you're a Christian, Brad. I think, there's times when, God has used people to break you down, and you kind of have to hit rock bottom. So I guess one of the things I've learned is that I'm a hard study, and sometimes I need to be broken down, and sometimes it can just be a day or a week, of having a low point. But sometimes the answer can be staring you in the face, but it's that fear, that scar tissue of a business divorce was stopping me from really getting into another one. And I finally realized that the person was right there in front of me. And so having the guts to kind of get back on the horse, do it the right way, attract that person with a compensation package that quite frankly was more than I was paying myself at the time. Mm-hmm. Attracting talent is expensive, but realizing and trusting that it would allow, I was effectively buying my own time back. I was effectively saying my family's important, so I'm willing to make less money, mm-hmm. I guess temporarily, but make less money to buy some of my time back. And then, what it turned into is obviously just, this scaling of the business where, we're now doing more houses in a month than we used to do, in a quarter. And so that's the traction. I did have a low point in March of 2018, and from there sprungboard back to having pushing through, getting the right person on board, and moving through the next stage of that life cycle where I now feel like I have the right people on board. And really, the CEO of an organization should just do three things. It's the vision of the organization, hiring the right people, and having the cash and financial relationships to back that up. So if you want to remove yourself and transition from being owning a job and being a small business entrepreneur to actually being a business owner, think of it in that terms. All you need to do is have vision and strategy, vision for the company, the direction, telling it where to go, having the cash and the finances to back it up. And then, just making sure the right people are on the bus. And the rest should be handled, all operations. In fact, in rocket fuel, it even says that the tie goes to the COO. So you have to actually give up operational control of your company to the COO, because if the tie goes to the COO when you're a differing opinion of operational, how to operate the business.
Yeah. One of the questions I get asked a lot, because I have someone working on our team. You guys have all met him, Brian Snyder. He's the CEO now, and I'm the owner, sitting in the owner's box. He was the COO before I promoted him to CEO. But one of the things is people always ask is, how do I find my number two? How do I find my operations manager, COO, whatever you want to call it? And that's a huge decision, right? And a lot of people get stuck. in that. And I think, Mark, maybe you got stuck when you're trying to decide on whether I should hire this person, whether I should not, the financial package. A lot of people just get stuck somewhere along the way. Maybe they think, oh, this is too much money. I can't pay anybody that much money. Maybe it's a control freak thing. Like, I can't let anybody else control anything, right? Because I'm the man. So what do you see with other leaders and maybe in your own experience, like, how did you overcome some of those decisions and priorities? Like, did you write it out? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, the biggest hurdle for me, if I'm being totally transparent, was probably the financial one. Understanding that to hire talent, you hear of these executives that are making just exorbitant amounts of money in corporate America and thinking that you can't attract that kind of talent. It's kind of a limiting mindset. For someone to climb the corporate ladder and, be making, 500,000 plus in corporate America, you have to sell your soul to that organization. And they take a lot, and it is a toll. And most of it involves travel because you're given regions and areas that you have to cover. And so, understanding a little bit better, if you call it competition, right? If you're thinking of it in terms of trying to hire talent, you could go to corporate America, or you could come work for a small business. Corporate America has a lot to offer, but you have way more to offer as a small business owner. They get to live, work, and breathe in their small town. They don't have to travel. They get better quality of life, and the compensation can be adequate and fair and commensurate to the effort that they're putting in and to what corporate America would be paying. So I think firstly it was overcoming that obstacle of just realizing that it would take a lot of money to hire top talent, and then it was to find the right person is a big hurdle. I think it's more about making sure that they are the personality that I'm a big believer in culture index, predictive index, DISC, whatever you want to call it, but understanding that personality types do fit certain roles. And you've got to make sure that you hire someone who is really good at holding people accountable for that role. That role entirely is all about LM&A, leading, managing, and holding accountable. And if you get someone that sucks in that role, you're going to have to step in and start doing their role for them, and it's just going to fall apart. So hiring someone that's comfortable in that role by, making sure you script out a good, not just the job description, but also fitting them to the personality traits that would be, adaptive to that particular role. And I say, for that role, I mean, really, we've now transitioned like all roles in the organization. We need to find, the right fit for the seat. So I think hiring for personality type has certainly changed the way we hire. But I think who was it? The Power of Who, Bob, I forget his last name, wrote a book where he said the concept that everybody that you need to know, you already know, is in your circle of influence already. If you start, voicing to the world your, call them problems or issues, concerns, or challenges that you're currently going through, the universe will solve your problem for you. And I think you start putting it out there in a positive light, not just, on LinkedIn and Indeed and those kind of sites, but start just telling people, hey, do you know anybody that would be interested in running a business? Oh man, yeah, this person, you'd be surprised how many people would find a small business an attractive place to come to work. And that's, I think, where you have to start.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Before the show, you said the magic is in the people. So when you scale the business the right way, how important is the people on your team?
Gosh, yeah. I mean, 2019 was a year where our mantra was just hire talent. People are everything. I mean, when you're the essential, I like the phrase, it's easier to do than to think. It's easier to do than to think. And what you want to try and surround yourself with is a culture of thinking rather than just doing. It's not just doing the tasks, but it's thinking about, is this the best way to do it? Should I be doing this right now? Is there a better way? Who should I be including? Like thinking through the process rather than just executing a task. Everyone can hire a VA to just go execute a task. But surrounding yourself with thinkers is what we were challenged to do. And so we have really elevated over the last 2 years. We've we've turned over almost 100% of our personnel. So I'm not proud of that in the sense that we, those were tough decisions and had to, fire a lot of people. But I came to the realization that the same people that got me to where I was are not the same people that were going to get me to where I want to go. And that's really, really tough. But that's the role of the CEO, is making sure that the people that are on the bus are the right people to get you to where you want to go. And so very difficult decisions had to be made. And obviously you have to be careful about the timing of all of that. And you can't just, Chris is, my COO likes to say, be careful who you fire and at what time, because you might be flying the plane solo. So there's some sense of timing to all of that, and it was a slow grind. I mean, you just pick an area of focus and make sure that you grow in that area. We have a large really 4 companies, right? You've got a huge acquisitions company. You've got a really large remodeling company. We're remodeling 300 houses a year. You've got a huge property management division. And then you've got a sales division. And so with those big 4 companies, we have to have leaders in each of those fields. And we've done a good job of surrounding ourselves with a true leader in each of those areas now. And then with Chris overseeing all of those 4, it's really elevated me out of the day-to-day, which has allowed me to just drive so much more value to the organization. I'm working on some pretty fun projects right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Like, what have you been up to now? And this transition happened. What is it now? Has it been a year?
Yeah, 2 years, 2 years. Since I hired Chris full-time in the role. That was another lesson, as we did transition him for about 5 months, kind of, doing it virtually, just making sure that we were a good fit for each other. So it's been 2 years. So the first year, 18 months was really him, bolting on, learning the business, understanding it, a slow lift, slowly getting the right people in the right place. We've been running at a very high level now for about 6 months. And so now we're starting to see the traction. And so for the last 6 months, I've been kind of elevated out of the business. For those that run an EOS, it's one thing to walk into a meeting and run an EOS at level 10. It's another to sit down, not say anything, and see your staff executing at a really high level at a level 10 meeting. It's like, wow, they get it.
Was that
really
hard for you at
to
first to kind of walk into meetings and kind of not say anything?
For sure. Yeah. And even with Chris, I mean, I had to let him fail. I mean, part of that is letting him fail, and then pulling him aside afterwards saying, hey, this is what, the business, needs in that area, or just, teaching him about real estate, or, because he didn't even come from real estate, he didn't understand the business. And so letting him fail and letting him grow. And now he has a thorough understanding, obviously, of the entire operation, and can run the whole thing. But yeah, it was a challenge to get completely removed. But now I'm working on some big projects. As you know, funds and syndications are coming in and buying up single family homes right now, on mass. I mean, there are funds that are calling us saying, hey, can you get us 10,000 homes in the next 4 years? Which most people would be like, no. So my brain goes to maybe.
Yeah, right. Possibly.
Yeah. So that's the fun challenge, right? I mean, I believe that we can deliver 1,000 homes a year, through this turnkey channel. And that's our big goal, big, hairy, audacious goal. I like the saying that you kind of probably overthink what you can do in a year, but you definitely undercommit on what you can do in 10 years. And I think we can probably get to 1,000 homes a year quicker than 10 years. In 5 years' time, I'd love to circle back and see where we're at, but 1,000 homes a year sounds pretty realistic right now with the people we have in place. And so that's what we're working on. It's just, we're committed to the turnkey product, whether that be to private investors, or to funds, syndications. We believe that in rental property, we believe that America is hurting for quality rental homes. There's so many slumlords out there, and we elevate ourselves out of that junk pile to differentiate ourselves by having granite and LVP flooring and a high level of professionalism, which, just small shout out, a kind of a cool metric. This has never happened before. But we are at 100% occupancy, Brett, over 600 homes, and we're at 100% occupancy on all of our assets right now, which has never happened. So
wow,
pretty crazy stuff.
Cool.
But yeah, we're passionate about that.
Congrats on that, man. That's awesome. You guys deserve it. You guys are awesome. You wrote a book recently called The Mistake-Free Real Estate. You have your podcast, The Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast. So tell us about that. Like, what inspired you to go out and just kind of become an author? You also do some podcasts. You're giving back. You're telling about your story, interviewing other people. What's kind of your inspiration behind that?
I think it was a process of me getting some of my time back and wanting to put some thoughts down in writing. I would constantly, every time I would, I think it was a cathartic experience because I valued my time. I valued my experience. I have a small amount of expertise well, I have a large amount of expertise in a very, very, very small lane, right? Like I don't know anything about anything, but when it comes to real estate and turnkey real estate, I think I'm finally at a point of acknowledging that there aren't many people that know it better than I do, at least how we do it. And so I thought I would just write a book on the value that it brings to someone. So it's a very specific niche. It's not just anyone pick up the book and read it. It is someone that is a high income, high net worth individual that could see themselves wanting to diversify out of the stock market and get into real estate. Well, how do I do that? And how do I, ask the right questions when I'm interviewing a property management company? And how do I know what kind of class of assets to buy? There's no right or wrong way, but the way that we're doing it is having success. And so I just wanted to kind of share what we're doing so that, people that were interested in us, it would be like, hey, Mark, and now we go more down the line of, Mark, I've read your book, I've listened to your podcast, and I'm in, I sign me up. So it certainly has helped to just accelerate the learning curve for those that might be interested in doing what we're doing. But yeah, my time is valuable. I enjoy interviewing other people and bringing value to my listening audience, which is typically kind of that high income, high net worth individual that is looking to diversify out of the stock market into real estate. And yeah, I find that the feedback I've been getting is that we're driving extreme value, which is very nice.
That's cool. That's cool. And it's cool just having fascinating conversations. I always say, if no one listened to this podcast, I would still do it because I get to talk to guys like Marck De Lautour. So, Mark, before we go in the last section of the show, another question that I get a lot is, how do you, as an entrepreneur, driven individual, balance your family at home? I know you're a family man, married, you have 2 children, and like, what impact has just kind of being a business owner had on your family? You talked a little bit about it earlier, but now where you're at now, like what impact has it had?
Yeah, first I'll start off by just giving a bit of background. My family life growing up was epic, awesome, great family. I have 3 siblings, which is still very, very dear to me. We're on a group chat all the time. Unfortunately, they live in New Zealand and I live in America. So that's a sacrifice that I pay to live the life that I currently do. But that does not mean that we're not connected. In fact, during COVID, when we're kind of in the lockdown, we would do, like trivia. There's a fun app, I forget what it's called, but you basically do like Trivial Pursuit, like through a Zoom call kind of thing. And that was kind of fun. We were doing that. Great family upbringing, very close, tight-knit parents who've been married for 40 plus years. So, just, really, really proud of my upbringing and feel blessed by that. So I feel like I have big shoes to live into. So I've always kind of had that mantra, work-life balance. But I would also say that I do believe that there's no such thing. Like, I'm not a believer. Like, I kind of pursued that for a time. And then when I finally have resigned myself to the fact, after reading and exploring that idea of work-life balance more, that there is no such thing. You can be committed to your family and be committed to work. But the balance that's there's no like perfect balance in all of this. And so I've relieved myself of the pressure of trying to be, this perfect balance at all times. I think Monday through Friday, you charge really, really hard. Now I'm blessed to be able to get home, at 4:00 and go to all of my son's baseball games. I, take my daughter to school in the morning. I'm very present in the evenings, and I take off Fridays to have date day with my wife. I live an intentional life now, where before I was pushing just extremely hard. So I'm where I want to be right now. Look, was there a time when I was pushing too hard? Absolutely. And that was causing me to run, too hard in one direction to just make sure that the business thrived and survived. But I think there's a season in life where every entrepreneur understands that it's kind of what you have to do. There are sacrifices for greatness. I don't think you would ever look at a successful, I truly world's greatest, right? So Tiger Woods or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or, even, Joe Montana, name that world-class athlete. I don't think that you would look at them and say that they live a truly balanced life. They had to give everything, sacrificing their friendship. I'm guaranteed that Tiger Woods doesn't reach out to his buddies like, hey, you want to go down and grab beer?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he sacrifices his social surroundings to pursue that excellence that he was after. And so, yeah, do I sacrifice, friendship time for, to make sure that I can get away for family? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
There are college buddies and high school friends that I've sacrificed because, we put, our family lake time above, me just hanging out on the golf course. Some friends. Absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's just a time for everything. I think each individual person needs to look at their life and say, what does my perfect week look like? What does my perfect day look like? What does my perfect year look like? How much time? And then commit to those kind of time cycles. Again, that's worked for me. But yeah, the whole idea of a perfect work-life balance is not something that I believe in. I think that there are seasons. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts, Brett?
No, I'm exactly with you. I mean, obviously there was many times that I did sacrifice and pushed really, really hard earlier in my career, and right now I'm in a season that I have young kids, and I've been in this last year. I've been kind of going back and forth. I could go out and do some more things and start a new business, and but I've decided I'm in that season now. I was like, hey, I'm gonna kind of chill out, hang out with my family, pour into them these next few years. It goes fast. And that's just the season that I'm in. So I think whether you do, you got to make sacrifices, and I think it does depend on what season that you're in. If I was a young 23-year-old came to me and he says, hey, I want work-life balance, I'd probably say, and he has not married, no kids, I'd say, man, just push as hard as you can. Just go for it,
Yes, exactly.
But if another guy came to me and he says, hey, I have a job and I want to start wholesaling, but I have 4 kids at home and I'm married, and I'd be like, I don't know, you're going to have 2 jobs. I don't know if I would do that. So I don't know. I think it just depends. So.
Yeah, I'm in a season right now where we're very committed to our kids' schedules. We're kind of, we feel like Uber drivers a lot of the time where, and my son's an extremely committed young athlete. He's only 14, so I say that term very loosely, but I mean, it's his job, I mean, he's really feels like he wants to be working, he's, working out all the time. He's going to this practice. He's on multiple teams. He's just got a passion for baseball. And, that in turn means that, as a family first guy, as a father who wants to help his kids pursue their passions, that means that we're sacrificing. We recently sold our home in Florida because we just weren't getting down there anymore. We could see it as a time where, we were no longer going to have those special weeks that we would just take a week and go down there. Certainly in a place where I'm at in business and life right now, we could travel a lot. We could travel around the world if their kids wanted to do so, but that's not where they're at. They are developing their little social lives and developing their, and part of my son's social life is his baseball life. And so we are committed parents.
Sounds like your son is a lot like his dad, and I'm sure he's probably going to be a really successful business guy one of these days, because it sounds like he's driven, and it's not like you, man. So sounds good. Before we go to the last section, any other just advice to our listening audience out there just about scaling the right way, that you have any thoughts?
You got to be passionate about what you do, mate. I think the biggest thing that I love what I do. I enjoy what I do. So that's the first thing, is have passion. The second thing is just remember that they say a leopard never changes his spots, but I think you have to be a chameleon as a business owner, because what gets you to one point will not get you to the next. And I am not the same business owner that I was 2 years ago. And I'm not the same business owner, from 10 years ago. I think, you have to free yourself up and allow your mind to think outside the box. When you own a business, when you are a CEO of a business, you've got to start surrounding yourself with talented individuals that can, drive you to the next level. And so, that relentless pursuit of talent to help drive you to the next goal should be something that you're committed to. I'm a huge believer in collaboration over competition. Don't go try and beat everybody up. We don't need, one of the things that we're doing right now is working with funds and selling houses to funds, right? So it's like, could I go start a fund and be a capital fundraiser and get all fund? And then, but that would be a distraction. Why not just be a deal flow provider to said fund? So, collaboration, I'm a big believer in, and just getting the right people around you to help you succeed and make your dreams come true.
Awesome. Guys, this is with Marck De Lautour. Make sure you check out his book, Mistake-Free Real Estate. Check out the podcast, Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast, and follow Marck wherever he goes. Marck, I like to end every show with a little fun. So this is called the Mocha Latte with Marck. So I don't know why I named it that, but it's just like, hey, if we're having a coffee together. So I got just a few questions. Usually these answers are less than, 60 seconds, I'd say. So whatever comes to your mind. All right, number 1, life-changing book for the business owner.
Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, second only to or anything that Patrick Lencioni wrote. And then obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad, I guess, was the antithesis. Everyone who gets into real estate specifically has to read that book. So that would probably be the life-changing one. But yeah, recently, A CEO Only Does Three Things, by Trey Taylor was really cool. Yeah, I could go on, but there's a pretty good list right there.
Awesome. Sounds good. Number 2, person who has mostly inspired you.
So there's not one person I'm not a big hero guy. I never really had someone that I was, that I constantly, listen to or do that. But I do love reading books. And so I tend to think that there's an infinite number of mentors out there. And the only limitation is, the speed at which I can digest that information. And so anyone young out there that doesn't have good reading habits, I would be careful. Just don't rely solely on podcasts and YouTube and those kind of things. Get into the paper, get into the Word, of course. But they also get into, a book. Just start reading books. There's so much quality content out there that I think people should be absorbing. So no direct hero, no direct person I look up to. I could obviously give you my parents who were great role models and I love them dearly, but I don't think that was the intent of the question. I think more it's, I kind of look to everybody. There's a book called Borrowed Brilliance, which is the idea that there's no such thing as original thought. You can kind of bolt on different ideas to something. For example, turnkey real estate. I'm not the first one to buy a house. I'm not the first one to remodel a house. I'm not the first person to property manage a house or sell a house, but doing it all in one loop, it's pretty unique.
Yeah. No, definitely. Key ingredient to your success.
Good upbringing. Blessed to be able to, say that, my parents invested in me at an early age. And when I say that, they invested in me. We're a very tight-knit family. They enjoyed traveling together, spending family time together, dinners around the table, card games, board games, and then, a good education. They actually, I went to a private boarding school in New Zealand called King's College, which would be the number one school in New Zealand for high school. And so they knew that a good education would set me up for success. So I think that certainly has led me to be able to catapult on, to where I am today.
What's a quote that you love?
Real estate is a crockpot business, not a microwave business. We're in the business of getting wealthy slowly over time, not getting rich quick.
I like that. I'm going to take that, steal that. Favorite athlete you follow?
I'm a golfer, so I enjoy watching PGA Tour. Patrick Mahomes is someone that most recently has just come onto the scene in Kansas City, so obviously he's idolized around here. But what I like about him is that he is definitively the ideal team player, right? So as Patrick Lencioni describes an ideal team player, it's someone who is humble, hungry, and smart. Humble in that you put team first above individual accolades. Hungry, like driven to succeed. And then smart, and not smart like IQ, but smart like EQ, knowing when to say the right thing, when to be quiet, when to confront someone on an issue, when to step back. And we try and surround ourselves with ideal team players. But man, when that organization now, the Chiefs are running at a very, very high level. And I think Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are the biggest reasons, because you just, even looking the way Travis Kelce has kind of, morphed into, more of a humble being now. When he first came out, he was brash and kind of confrontational, was all about him. Man, since Patrick's been there, and I think he just leads by example. He's been given, again, a great upbringing, a great family. His dad was a great athlete. I think he's someone that I would say would be someone that I would have no problem my kids looking up to, saying, I want to be like that guy one day.
Sounds good. Last one. What's a bucket list item?
I'm a travel guy. And so I would love to go different places. I have literally a map called the bucket list map that I'll see a place and end up going there. One of the recent additions was a place called Post Ranch Inn, which is a place out in Carmel and on the Monterey Peninsula. It just looked idyllic. And so one of my friends had gone there and said, "Hey, this is where I'm at." So I looked it up and I'm like, "Oh, bucket list. I want to go there with my wife," So there's bucket lists for, personal, and then for couples, and then for friends, and then family, destination places. But I just crossed off a bucket list recently when my wife and I actually went down to Mexico, rented out an awesome place down there, and celebrated our 20-year wedding anniversary with the people that were in our wedding, as well as the couples that were closest to us right now. So we had 6 couples down there, just having a great time, renewed our vows, on a beach, overlooking the Pacific. It was just idyllic. So it's all about, to me now, it's about creating experiences for friends and family that you can celebrate together.
Love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Marck. Before we end the show, I forgot to mention there's possibly a new leadership position that you have came on board. We're part of the same mastermind group, the Collective Genius. I just saw a few weeks ago, possibly you hopping on the leadership team on that. So tell us about that real quick. And what's the Collective Genius meant to you as well?
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate the shout out. So the Collective Genius is a real estate mastermind network of basically the top real estate investors from each metro come together and pool their real estate knowledge and talent. I've been a part of that group now for it'll be 5 years in September. And it has really helped me through all of these things that we're talking about: growing as a business owner, a husband, a father, surrounding myself with quality, like-minded individuals that can help me grow and scale. A lot of what we talked about today has come and been birthed out of that group. Been blessed to have been invited on to be part of that leadership team. Jason approached me a couple months ago with the idea and just announced it a few weeks ago that I will be facilitating a room and helping with the leadership of that group moving forward. So yeah, quite an honor. It came completely out of left field. But it's been fun to be a part of, and will continue to be a part of. Again, I think kind of the bucket list, my bucket list now is not so much things I want to do, but who I want to do it with. And similarly, this is kind of a bucket list, business thing for me, because it's allowing me to give back in a way that I wouldn't without this vehicle. People will naturally be looking up to me and asking for guidance in a way that I feel I have the knowledge and know-how and time. That's one of the biggest things now,
for sure.
To give back and invest in them. So I'm excited for what those next steps will be.
Sounds good. Well, congrats. It's no better man to step into that. I know you're going to do an awesome job. So thanks for being on our show today, Marck. Really appreciate you, man. And God bless you and your family.
Thanks, Brett. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for checking out the Brett Snodgrass channel. If you like this video, please slam on that like button. And if you really like it, then subscribe to our channel here. And remember to leave us a comment below, and I'm going to try my hardest to reply to all the comments. Thank you guys so much. This is why I do what I do. Every single week, I come out with content that focuses on success, freedom, and living out your purpose. Thank you guys so much. See you next time.